Good morning. Mabilis ang basa ng ating libro, guys. Kapwa ka Pilipino, magbasa na tayo ng ating history book. History of the Filipino People by Agoncillo and Guerrero. Today is 04/2023. History of the Filipino People, Part 3, Reform and Revolution. Topic number 13, the Filipino-American Hostilities. Dito tayo sa paragraph, the San Juan Bridge Incident. Konti lang basahin natin ngayon kasi may pasok na alaga natin, so mabilis ang basa lang to. The San Juan Bridge Incident. Incident followed incident which inevitably led to the outbreak of hostilities. On February 1, a group of American engineers was arrested by the Filipino troops. The following day, Otis filed a protest with Aguinaldo. The latter replied that the 5 Americans were not arrested but merely detained. Aguinaldo further pointed out that the Americans were found well within the Filipino lines and that they were detained in accordance with the decree of October 20, 1898, prohibiting foreigners from approaching the Filipino defensive works. On the same day, February 2, General MacArthur protested the presence of Colonel Luciano San Miguel's soldiers within his territory. San Miguel, wanting to avoid any conflict with the Americans, ordered his men to withdraw from the American side. The tension seemed to have been relaxed a little when, on the night of February 4, an incident occurred which led to the outbreak of the Filipino-American hostilities. At about 8 in the evening of February 4, Private Willie W. Grayson, with 2 other members of his patrol, advanced ahead of the village in San Juan to ascertain whether there were Filipino soldiers in the vicinity. Suddenly, 4 armed men appeared before Grayson. He said later, recounting the event, "I yelled halt. The man moved. I challenged with another halt. Then he immediately shouted halt to me. Well, I thought the best thing to do was to shoot him. He dropped. We retreated to where our 6 other fellows were, and I said, 'Line up, fellows, the enemy is here, all through these yards.' We then retreated to the pipeline and got behind the waterwork main and stayed there all night. It was some minutes after our second shots before Filipino began firing." The following day, MacArthur, without attempting to find out the cause of the firing, issued his order to advance against the Filipino troops. The Filipino-American armed clash was on. Investigation of the incident. That same night, Captain Fernando Gray wired Malolos saying that the Americans had started the hostilities. Aguinaldo could not do anything at the moment, but the next day he sent an emissary to Otis to convey to the American commander that the firing on our side the night before had been against my order. Furthermore, he expressed his wish to stop further hostilities. Otis, who was sure of American victory, answered that the fighting having begun must go on to the grim end. Aguinaldo then sent a telegram to all local chiefs informing them at the start of the Filipino-American hostilities and ordering them to prepare the people for any emergency. To determine the origin of the hostilities, he ordered Felipe Bencamino Sr. to start an investigation. On February 7, Bencamino asked Secretary of War Baldomero Aguinaldo for information regarding the incident. Investigations were conducted and witnesses called to testify on what they knew about the event. It appeared from the investigation that the senior military officers were not at their posts on the night of February 4 but were in Malolos with Aguinaldo. It was also learned that on February 2 and 3, the Filipino employees in American ships were dismissed from the service for no reason at all, and that in the morning of February 4, some 200 to 300 American soldiers boarded 2 cascos in Manila were towed to Cavite. Upon their arrival here, they were not disembarked, but sent back to Manila where they joined the other American contingents. The fact too that the American attack on the Filipino troops was sudden showed that the Americans had planned the incident to force the issue against the Filipinos. On the other hand, the American military authorities made no attempt to investigate the incident. Instead, they ordered an all-attack against their former allies. American victories. With swift strokes, the American army knifed through Pasig and other towns south of Manila and the north. General MacArthur pushed ahead with his columns bombarding the Filipino positions with accuracy. In the Battle of La Loma near the Chinese cemetery, Major Jose Torres Bugalyon, one of the bravest officers, fell mortally wounded. With Loma secure in his hands, MacArthur proceeded towards Caloocan, where General Antonio Luna was waiting for him. In the fierce battle that followed, American superiority in arms once more proved victories. Undaunted by his defeat, Luna prepared a plan for the recapture of Manila. On February 22, he marched against the city, burning the houses in the suburbs to create confusion in the ranks of the enemy. 2 days later, Luna's forces reached Azcaraga, but the Americans fought back and repulsed him with heavy losses. Luna then retreated to Polo, where he established his headquarters. The drive to the north. Sorry. In late February and early shortcut ko kasi Okay, ulit. The drive to the north. In late February and early March, American reinforcements arrived from the United States. General Otis then began his intensive drive to the north and ordered General Henry W. Lawton to take the offensive in the south. Polo was taken, followed by the towns along the Manila-Dagupan Railway until on March 30. The American army was knocking at the gates of Malolos. Meanwhile, the Aguinaldo government was evacuated Malolos and established its headquarters in San Isidro, Nueva Ecija. MacArthur wanted to pursue Aguinaldo, but Otis ordered him to take a rest in Malolos. Meantime, General Lawton moved swiftly to the south, capturing Zapote, Bacoor, and Dasmariñas, all in Cavite. On the other hand, General Wheaton, aided by gunboats, successively captured Las Piñas and Parañaque in Morong and Santa Cruz, Paite, and other towns of Laguna. But the Americans were not always victorious. On March 25, Filipinos made a good count of themselves when they repulsed General Wheaton at Polo and killed Colonel Egbert in Guingua. Plaridel. On April 23, the American cavalry under Major Bell suffered a defeat in the hands of General Gregorio del Pilar. In this battle, the Americans suffered heavy casualties, including Colonel Stotzenberg, who was killed in battle. On December 18, 1899, the Filipinos under General Licerio Geronimo routed the Americans under General Lawton, who was killed in the Battle of San Mateo. But these Filipino victories, however, were not sufficient to turn the tide against the Americans. The Filipino troops were poorly trained, poorly armed, poorly fed, and had no discipline. After resting his men in Malolos, MacArthur now decided to march against Calumpit. The Filipinos under General Luna were in a good position to give battle to the enemy, for the Americans had to cross creeks and rivers to dislodge the Filipino defenders. Important to the Filipinos was the Bagbag River, which afforded them good protection against the enemy. MacArthur decided to encircle the Filipino defenders of Calumpit by sending his subordinate officers to Guingua and Pulilan, while he confronted Luna directly. At the precise moment when the enemy was about to launch his attack, General Luna, irked by the insubordination of General Tomas Mascardo, left Calumpit with his artillery, cavalry, and foot soldiers to punish Mascardo, who was then in Pampanga. General Gregorio del Pilar was left to defend the Filipino lines, but American superiority in strategy and arms proved too much for the boy general. When Luna returned to Calumpit before nightfall, the Americans had already succeeded in penetrating the Filipino defensive lines. Thus, the Battle of Bagbag was lost, and with it, the other battles that followed. The Fall of Mabini. Hanggang dito na lang siguro tayo sa The Fall of Mabini, guys. Bukas na yung assassination of Luna. The Fall of Mabini. Mabini, as president of the cabinet, was the most powerful man behind Aguinaldo in the United States through this Storman Commission announced the policy of the American government of extending its sovereignty over the Philippines. Mabini urged the Filipinos to continue the bitter struggle for independence. In a manifesto dated at San Isidro, April 15, 1899, he said, "And since war is the last resource that is left to us for the salvation of our country and our own national honor, let us fight while a grain of strength is left us. Let us acquit ourselves like men. Even though the lot of the present generation is conflict and sacrifice, it matters not whether we die in the midst or at the end of our most painful day's work. The generations to come, praying over our tombs, will shed for us tears of love and gratitude, and not bitter reproach." On May 5, Secretary of State John Hay cabled this Storman Commission authorizing it to offer autonomy to the Filipinos. Mabini stood for independence under the protection of the United States, but the prominent members of the Malolos government like Paterno and Bangkamino wavered and wanted to accept the American offer of autonomy, believing more in autonomy than in independence under the circumstances. Halatang nagmamadali na talaga. Under the circumstances, the influential members of the Filipino Assembly, formerly Congress, passed a resolution asking Aguinaldo to repudiate Mabini's independence stand and to relieve him as president of the cabinet. Under this pressure, Aguinaldo on May 7, 1899 wrote Mabini notifying him of the formation of a new cabinet under Paterno. The following day, Mabini answered Aguinaldo, congratulating him on his wise political measure. With Mabini's resignation, the executive arm of the government was reorganized. With Mabini's resignation, the executive arm of the government was reorganized. 7 departments were created: Foreign Affairs, Treasury, Interior and Navy, Communications and Public Works, Public Instruction, and Agriculture, Industry, and Commerce. The new cabinet under Paterno was composed of Pedro A. Paterno, President of the Cabinet; Felipe Bangkamino, Secretary of Foreign Affairs; Severino de las Alas, Secretary of the Interior; Mariano Trias, Secretary of War and Navy; Hugo Ilagan, Secretary of the Treasury; Aguedo Velarde, Secretary of Public Instruction; Maximo Molo, Secretary of Communication and Public Works; Leon Maria Guerrero, Secretary of Industry, Agriculture, and Commerce. So hanggang dyan na lang guys. Bukas na yung assassination of Luna. Bye everyone. God bless.